Hello everyone. It's our pleasure today to have Mr. Sameer Jain with us. He is our esteemed Plaksha founder, as well as he has been in the industry for the past 25 years. He is CEO at Net Solutions, which is a global leader in providing a digital dedicated development teams, IT consulting, MVP development. Thank you, sir, for joining us today, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Sir, so let's start from the beginning. In 1997, World Wide Web had just come to Chandigarh, and you were one of the few Indians who were exploring internet at that time. Now, how did you really start your side gig in programming, and how did Net Solutions really start?
Yeah, so I was an accidental entrepreneur. I did not really start this as a business thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I was in a family business, and it wasn't a good fit for me. I wanted to change, and I wanted to see if I can be connected with the rest of the world. And the internet was, at that time, was coincidental that at the same time I was looking to do something. That's when I started looking, saw the internet, saw the opportunity, ordered a few books from Amazon, started learning programming, because in college used to program in C and not the web technology. So picked up those programming languages and started coding on my own. That's when I put up a portal called Seek India, which the domain still exists, but it was more like Yellow Pages. Put up a few pages, and then people started coming to me saying, can you do this for us? So it's very accidental. I did not think I was starting a services business, but because I put myself out there, there were people who were interested. So ahead of the curve, I think the learning here is that I was ahead of the curve in that sense. I spent time learning something, just like AI is at this point in time. There's so much that is happening in the world of AI. I guess there's so many college students these days picking up, building their own LLMs, not LLMs, I would say, but building their own, using ChatGPT to build their own products. So it was somewhat similar in that sense. So it was very accidental.
So at that time, you only had very limited resources like dial-up, right? Now, with that limited resource, how did you acquire your first 10 customers? And did those companies really know the potential of internet, or did you have to educate them?
Yeah, good question. So when I launched that portal, it was here in Chandigarh, and then I had some people here in Chandigarh who started coming to my office, but that was because they wanted to browse the internet. They were leveraging the fact that I had an internet connection rather than anything. So very quickly I realized that I'm not going to survive in this particular geography because it was way too early. Again, people talk about entrepreneurship, timing, market, demand, all of those are really, really important. Timing was right, the market was really wrong for me. So I guess what again worked for me that I put myself out there, and the internet was available all around the world. It wasn't just Chandigarh. So my first client actually came from the US and said, well, you build this for yourself, can you also code for me? And I said, sure. It's a funny story because I didn't really know how to build that person. I said, so how will I build you? He says, well, there's a program language called Code Fusion. I'll send you a book from Amazon, learn, and then bill me by the hour. I said, what is bill me by the hour? What does that even mean? He says, well, keep an Excel sheet of the hours that you're spending and then multiply that with the hourly rate and then bill me. I said, well, how much rate should I apply? He said $15 an hour. So that was 2000, even before. So I said, sure. So I guess those people knew programming, and I did not have to teach them. But the languages, obviously, they knew more, and I didn't. So I learned Code Fusion, hired somebody who knew Code Fusion, who could learn, and then really built a business from there. Shockingly, my first client was General Motors. My second client was Ford Motors. It was just crazy at that point in time. But again, the learning here is that visibility at that time it was easier to be found, I guess. Now it's more difficult, but now people say, what is that social media strategy? What is that LinkedIn strategy, event strategy? How do you really build thought leadership? For me, thought leadership was this guy was ahead of the curve. He knows how to program, and this is even before the outsourcing boom really happened. So it was.
So you were one of the first companies out there to offer dedicated teams for development. But as that progressed, I believe there's a lot of companies who've come into the same space. How did you differentiate yourself and survive?
So IT services is basically, you do contract development, outsourced development, right? Or design. And when someone comes to you and says, I want this project built, then you decide what are the ways in which you can build it. Can I give you a team? Should I bill you by the project? Should I bill you by the hour? Those are the three general ways. When early days, we were a web design company doing less programming, more of design, website design, right? Because nobody really was doing it then.
Right.
But when actually, I don't know, I mean, you're too young for this, but there used to be a concept called pop-under banners and pop-up banners. So on the browsers, banners would pop up, really big banners, and it was so irritating. And Google Chrome came and killed it and said, this is bullshit, you can't do this. But we used to do so many of those banners at that point in time. So design was our forte. But then when that industry got killed, a lot of our clients started building products. And products, typically how they work is that you don't really know what you're building. So if you understand the concept of MVPs and really doing market research and building POCs and then launching your product and then continuously improving your product, right? So there is no definition of what you're going to build, because you kind of discuss with the client and say, well, this is your backlog and these are the features you should pick up, and by sprint 3, do you understand agile programming at all? How does agile work? So by sprint 3, sprint 4, we launch it. So there's no cost to it. So our DNA was product design. And in fact, one of the guys that I put you in touch with, the team here to teach a course here for product development, Vikramadhiman, who's now head of products or someone really senior at Gojek in Indonesia. We're seeing if we can get him here to teach that course. But he was one of the first employees when we launched the product service. And he's the guy who we picked up from a university here in Punjab, and he is the one who talked about agile and how you should never quote a project, right?
Right.
And so the only way in which we could do that is build teams for people, dedicated teams for people. The differentiation really is that we are not building teams for you. We are cradle to grave in that sense. We start with the user interviews, research, customer journeys, product backlogs, and then build that product for you. And then now DevOps, and then the entire circle of understanding consumer behavior, how they're using the site, etc. So we don't staff, so that staffing doesn't work, but we deliver that product. It's our responsibility, but we take full onus of that. But we build teams around dedicated resources, and we charge you for that. So it's almost like it's your team, outsourced team, and we'll do it for you.
Just to follow up on that, what made you all decide to create teams and not charge you like the business model by the hour? What is the reason? Like he suggested the product management, Gojek.
So it wasn't the hour. The hour is obviously even more profitable. It was by project. The reason is that if you're building a product, anybody has a product idea? Anybody here has a product idea at all? Yet wants to build a product? Anyone? No? Okay, so you have okay.
I was thinking that,
So do you know exactly what you want to build?
like, I have an idea.
Okay, great. So people only have an idea. So they don't know. So if you don't know what you have to build, we can't quote you a fixed price.
Okay.
So then we work with you to define what you want. And then once you have the definition, then assign a team to you. So there's no way we can estimate. Whereas the typical waterfall where you know exactly what you want. So in enterprises, they know I want this use case solved. Right? It's not innovation. It's not building something which is unique. So that you can give a quote.
Right.
The others you can't. So the way we sold it was, it's an outsourced team, an agile team, and on-demand team. You can go up and down, scale up the team, reduce the resources, don't have to pay for insurance, all of that.
Right.
So you mentioned about the pop-ups, right? So I have a fun fact for the audience. Back then, all the pop-ups or the landing pages which you would see, 90% of them were created by the Net Solutions. And so you also mentioned that you started as a web designing company. Now gradually you added MVP development as a service, IT consulting as a service. Back then, how did you really know that which service to actually add to your company's product portfolio? And what were the market trends back then? And what are market trends today? And what 5 products would you actually add today to your portfolio? seeing the trend.
Okay. That's a difficult one. How do you know what service to add? It really is determined by the market. When you go out in front of customers and you work with customers, they ask you, do you know how to do this? So that's one way to pick a product or service. The other thing is if you go and try and sell something and nobody is interested, so it becomes more like a push rather than a pull. The more of a push it becomes, that means there is no product service fit or product market fit, because then people aren't really coming to you. There's no problem that you're solving. So it really built on the market demands. Because I had to stop building banners and landing pages because nobody was interested anymore. So product design, product development became a big one. So we used to say that people come to us for design and stay for development, right? Because design was such a strong capability. A lot of people said in India, nobody knows how to design, and we knew how to design. But they said, oh, by the way, do you do programming? And then they will stay for programming. But increasingly, we realized that user experience was a big one. We understood user experience 15 years ago, what that is. How do you build a system that uses user experience? So we doubled down on user experience. So we became more design-led. So anything that we do, the reason, so we say, just don't build the product right. That means you engineer the product right, but we also build the right product. So what is the product that you should build? A lot of Indian companies don't do that. They only follow orders, right? Communication skills are poor. You tell them what to do, they'll do it. They're really good technically, but don't really know what needs to be built. So we built a really strong product owner team, business analyst team, design team. And we started billing that, by the way. At that time, nobody was billing for these people, but 40% of the cost of a project or a product were business analysis and design and product building the backlog and consulting. So that became a differentiation because people really appreciated that. So the last part of the question was, what will you do now? I mean, the world's really changing. AI is massive. People are asking us to build AI within the products. We're also doubling down. At this point in time, the economy is bad. So the services are that we're trying to double down on our revenue-generating services, which means e-commerce is a very strong capability for us. So how do you use data analytics to merchandise your products better? So that's the area that we're doubling down on, and we're seeing success there. So again, one other thing that we haven't done is we didn't focus on verticals, domains. We are trying to do more of that. So we were more like product development company, right? So you come to us, we're outsourced product development, but that itself is not enough. Domain experience is very, very critical.
So narrowing down on that, with emerging technologies like you mentioned, AI, machine learning, and blockchain, how do you feel Net Solutions is planning on incorporating that? If you could give us some specific examples for us to understand, and some niche use cases you feel are very relevant to Net Solutions, that will help us understand. And how do you predict these trends to be changing over the next 2 or 3 years, and how do you plan on incorporating them?
Yeah, it's a tough one, again. And because everything is changing so quickly in the AI world, that's one area that we're seeing a lot of traction. And by the way, at least there's a lot of conversations around that. It's a door opener. We've just set up a center of excellence in Gen AI. So we're very particular about AI also. We're not doing everything. We're saying Gen AI. How do we really look at Gen AI and build capabilities? So few things that we are doing, and we'll talk about use cases, but for ourselves, one of the things that we're trying to see is how we can become AI engineers rather than engineers, right? So how do we go beyond saying, oh, we can code. How do we use AI to code 2x, 3x faster? How many of you are doing computer science here specifically? Okay. You're in third year, 2 years down the line. I think I'll tell you that if you don't use AI to generate at least 30%, 40% of your code, you're not doing a good job. My daughter has just graduated from university in the US in December, and the first few jobs that she's been applying to, everyone's like, AI, what have you done in AI? What have you done in AI? So AI is going to hit you like a ton of bricks, right? Just like for us also, how do you really become those full stack? People used to say full stack, front end, database, this, that, programming. Now it's AI engineers. So that's one focus, one trend that we see that we're trying to focus on. The other use cases are, like I said, focusing only on Gen AI and seeing how we can use Gen AI for some of the products that we're building. In products, I can give you an example of a company called Optisolve. In fact, I'm trying to see if the CTO of that company can speak with you. It's a company called Optisolve in Canada. imagine you are in a hospital and the surface is dirty and you need to use AI to figure out what needs to be done here, right? So there's a device, you take a picture of that, it takes 5 or 7 pictures, I don't know the exact number, I've forgotten. But you take a picture, it analyzes and tells you this is the problem with the surface, and they have a range of products. It can also say use this product and this is the way you should apply it and clean it. So that's an AI use case. And because some of the information that needed to be, so there's none of it is AI, by the way, but the use of AI to actually generate text and say to a person who's actually applying a cleaner and saying use this and apply this and use this product and this is how you clean. That's a use case that we have at this point in time. And again, it's an existing product building AI within the product. In terms of retail use cases, there are a few different ones that we're looking at. You look at, there's a concept called AI agents. How do you use AI agents to really look at data, learn from the data automatically and give insights. You could use AI to, for example, look at how users come to your website, how do they interact with the website, which pages do they go to, which are your most profitable pages, which pages make you sell more, and then using that knowledge and then saying, this page and in plain English saying, by the way, you need to do this to improve your website. So you don't need tech agencies to do that for you. You can do that yourself. At least the basic stuff you can do yourself. So there's all those cases. Again, that's what we're going to be doing more of. Like I said, the market is really, really changing. So we don't know where this is going to go. But Gen AI is supposed to be a $3 trillion opportunity. There's so much anybody here in this room. In fact, I mean, if you should be building your own Gen AI products out there, simple use cases, you should be able to do that.
Sir, so you mentioned about the AI and Gen AI use cases within your own company. And as you stated, this entire space is becoming very competitive. There are new competition emerging, even within new specialization of product development, which your company is right now not doing. So are there any plans of pivoting?
I mean, pivoting is a different ball game, right? More and more, I don't know if you've heard the concept of as a service, X as a service, right? Like software as a service, right? So this as a service. I think more and more you will see that you have agencies that do things for a service, right? I can run, you're a direct-to-consumer company, I can run e-commerce as a service, end-to-end. Use data analytics to tell you which products to make more of, how to sell, where to sell, run the entire platform. So the pivoting can happen like that, by the way, but a lot of IT companies believe that Gen AI and AI in particular can open so many opportunities, just like the cloud did. I know that there'll be fewer people needed, and so from that perspective, more will be expected of you to do from less. But there's going to be enough demand because think about it. A couple of years ago, consulting was dead, right? People, Bain, some of the others were firing people. Now, imagine Gen AI can create, no industry knows how to use Gen AI, no industry knows how to use AI. So consultants are back in demand. So I feel once the consultants are back in demand, services companies are back in demand. There's a play for us. We're profitable companies, unlike products. Product companies are, can be a bit dodgy in terms of finding the product market fit, too early, too late. This is more conservative, I would say, but you're profitable. But again, you look at Fractal and Shrikant Velamkani, one of the founders. I mean, he runs a really profitable business, works for Google, does all their work. I mean, so there's enough work. The only thing is how deep can you go and how much of a talent can you retain and how do you really skill yourself? That's the key here, which is more difficult, I think. The demand isn't more difficult. I don't think it's very competitive. You said that it's too competitive. It isn't. Companies don't really understand how to use AI,
Just to
build
follow
AI.
up on that, do you feel there's some sort of disparity in terms of how Gen AI and AI applications and kind of endowments in AI are coming about in the West and in India, and for like specifically the Silicon Valley I'm referring to, and for students who are building in Gen AI, do you feel this place right here is the place to be, or should they perhaps kind of get experience abroad and then kind of get it, because there's not a lot of cutting edge work happening in Gen AI in India, and more related to wrappers around what has been built previously
Yeah.
in the West.
I think there's going to be a huge demand in those wrappers, by the way. Uh, Silicon Valley you mentioned is building LLMs. I do not believe. I mean, Sam Altman said, "Don't waste your time building LLMs," and some Indians famously said that we'll beat you to it, and they didn't. It's unlikely that that'll happen in the near term. But what should be done is how do you use those LLMs to verticalize some of those solutions. So it really depends what you want to do. If you really want to be at the core of that innovation, build LLMs, sure, go to the US. There'll be some of that happening here, and who knows how LLMs will also morph. You could do your own LLMs. There's tons of things that you could do. But in India, there is enough innovation. I disagree in that there isn't enough innovation happening. A lot of innovation happens in India. I mean, we talked about Shrikant's company, but there's GICs that are building, that are using AI for America, built in India. You could join one of those companies. I read yesterday about Salesforce setting up a Salesforce tower here in India, the first of its kind. I mean, there are Salesforce towers all over the world. They're setting that up. A lot of that innovation will happen in India. I wouldn't rule India out. In fact, a lot of action is in India. I wouldn't say the action is outside. Try finding a job outside, try finding a job in India. You might find a job here than in the US.
So in your previous answer, you had mentioned that the key is retaining talent and finding skilled talent. So back then, how did you really find the skilled talent? You had a team of 20 developers. So how did you really find that initial team? And even in today's time, how do you really attract top skilled talent? How do you really retain them? And how do you vet the talent? Because you have, different kind of talent, right? UI, UX developers, app developers. So how do you really manage this entire process of attracting, retaining, and vetting? And today, and also how did you do initially?
So in the past, it was easier, somewhat. When we started, there were companies around. We were probably the youngest, smallest, not funded. Used to get a lot of, oh, that's a bigger company. Oh, they don't work on Saturdays, and we used to work on Saturdays. So it was a question of really talking about who we are working with, what we are doing, and to align people to a vision. So like I said, our first product was with Ford and General Motors. So that really, I used to say, well, why won't you work with us? We're working for Ford and General Motors, So that was one thing that helped. And I also remember calling one parent actually. So some guy interviewed and said, I won't join because my mom doesn't allow me to work for you. And so I called that guy's mother and said, Auntie, why won't you let him work for us? Or so it was picking up the phone and building that team. And thankfully, there was a lot of talent available, and it was easier at that time. And we are one of the very early companies. In fact, I was probably the first or second IT services company at that time. Bootstrapped, sole entrepreneur, just started it, like I said, accidental, but more like a dream in the eyes, less of a whatever. So it was different. And then talent attraction or acquisition, and then retention, and all of that is changing by the day. There are no real answers to that. You try and find the right people, identify people, give them a good work culture. You have to pay enough, obviously. But I think those are all regular things. I would say one different thing that we would do is that we would give people ownership. So if you joined our company, from day one, you're talking to clients. We never hide anyone. You're always accessible to clients, and you learn so much because you're talking to clients. You're never sitting because your manager says, "Acha, ab ye kar le, ab wo kar le." It doesn't work like that, right? So retention's been easy from that perspective. We have, in fact, just today, in an internal email that I got, an employee was celebrating the 19th year, which I think is fabulous. But on the other side, I will also say this to you, that some of our clients are just as old. We're still working with them. It's the trust that you can build with your employees and them, but also I think if you feel appreciated, and a lot of people can go anywhere. They can go to Bangalore, they can go anywhere, Delhi, Mumbai, and a lot of people do go. But if you find whatever you're looking for here, especially after COVID, nobody really cares where you're working for, right? So, Again, no right answer, right or wrong answer, but you need to keep tweaking things as you go along.
What's your thought on vetting the talent?
Wetting the talent? An interesting one. I don't believe we know how to vet talent. I don't think anyone can vet talent to a degree where you feel confident somebody can deliver. You need to take bets on people. I would say we don't take bets on people who are absolute rock stars, but you take bet on people who seem to be, who have learnability, who you feel are diligent, work hard. I've always said this in my company that we are ordinary people doing extraordinary things, because I was an ordinary person. Anyone that I know didn't come from an IIT and IIM, who cares where they come from? But if I could deliver stuff to Ford from day one, building something, learning from a book that I bought off Amazon. I'm the oldest customer of Amazon in this country, perhaps. I ordered a book in 1997. Were you born then? I mean, I don't even know. Think about that. So, so that becomes important. So can I vet people? No, but I have seen that the right talent will show you that diligence more than anything else. And rock stars, they can be good and they can be exceptions, but I don't think we have time for people who are that spectacular, because they need to be challenged all the time. They can't do boring work, which is sometimes can be boring because you're not cutting edge all the time. In a services company, you do what people tell you to do. So in that sense, yeah.
Could you tell us more about your experience with Ford, and how was it like during the early days being a small company and taking them on as a client? Was it intimidating? What were some of the things that you went through? Some personal experiences if you could share.
Yeah, I mean, so Ford was, in fact, for a client of mine called Magnus Software, and they had a client called Talking Books World. Talking Books World was actually an audiobook library where you could borrow audiobooks at that time. So they weren't digital; they were in audiobook format. So when it came to us, I mean, it was just like any other product. I mean, we built the product, and I just remember like I said, I was just thinking one person in a corner of the world, literally in one corner of the world, and my office was in a shed, industrial shed in Panchkula at that time, not too far from here. And I was like, what the hell am I doing there? And it was crazy. I didn't even have a laptop at that time. I used to live in Ambala. I used to, in my car, lug the desktop back home every night, come back in the morning, start programming again. I mean, those are days I remember. I learned design tools. Paint Shop Pro was one of the tools I learned on my own to do the design of that tool. So those are the good ones. But it was with the client, so it was a lot of focus would be on the client. We were the back office in that sense. But that isn't the point. The point is that product was still installed on the local intranet of Ford and Chrysler and General Motors. So that was the interesting bit for me.
And how did you get them? Yeah.
So through this client called Magnus Software, one of the clients. So this was the guy who said, can you learn Cold Fusion? And I'll send you a book from Amazon. So that's how I got the client. Again, serendipity. Again, the only thing I say is put yourself out there and make yourself visible. Don't expect that the world will come to you. You need to go out and declare yourself to the world, right? A lot of people who sit here think they'll be hired by Amazon, Salesforce, this and that. But I mean, why? Why? I mean, you're one of the so many. What is it that you're doing differently? Is there any code that you're writing which is solving a problem? Are you picking up something that is unique? Are you looking at an Gen AI and building something? Even a wrapper is okay. Are you using AI to write code? What are your thoughts as somebody who's third year in a university? So imagine posting that on LinkedIn saying, I am the third year student at Plaksha University. Today was the first day I looked at Claude, and this is my experience. Write a post, doesn't matter. Now imagine when you go out next year and say, I am looking for a job and this is what I want to do. And then someone looks at it, there's genuine proof that you're interested, knows what that experience looks like, and you'll be headhunted. So it's exactly similar in that sense that put yourself out there, which we did, launching portals. There have been a lot of pivots in our life, by the way. It isn't just that pivot, but when the crashes happened, we built products, then we sold those products, and the companies that we sold those products to, we managed, maintained those products, we built products on top. Every time we did that, we actually just grew rapidly. So again, put yourself out there.
So you just now mentioned that what's actually different with Plaksha students, because there are IITs and then we are also competing with US colleges. So what are some top 4 skills you would actually give to the audience? Because what you just now mentioned is documenting your journey over LinkedIn, which also increases visibility and shows how students are consistent and persistent over time. So what's like the top 4 advices you would give?
To find a job, or for us to hire, or both, or what do we look for?
Find a job and
To find a job?
To become exceptional talent out there, or just become an exceptional person. Because again, we are competing with global universities. It's not like the competition just lies within the campus. It's actually with the entire world.
I think, unfortunately, you're expected to know more than what is being taught in the universities, right? So I was just talking to a professor today, and the fact that Gen AI is, such a big thing, and you've talked about it, but how much of Gen AI are we really doing here? And that'll change. Universities take time to really change, right? And to bring in, you need a really good professor who can teach you, who really understands. There's a course that is decided or determined and then teaches you. So I would say that making sure that you are learning and you understand those things. And like, for example, if somebody came to us and said, well, I can write 40% of the code using, any AI tool, and I know prompt engineering, and I can do testing, I could write my own test cases, I am full stack, and I know how to do it, I can do wireframes, I can do this, we'll hire that person, right? It's as simple as that. So that's one, I would say. Communication skills is important. A lot of times, especially because we work with foreign clients all the time, unfortunately, fortunately, comm skills become important because, like I said, we expose all our resources to customers, and if you can't communicate, then customers won't choose you, unfortunately. It's one of the things that you need to do. So that's number 2. One of the things that worked for me specifically was that people always said, oh, I can understand you. You are Indian? I don't think so. So that becomes really, really important. And because it's not as common as you think it is, right? The fact that you can explain yourself, the fact that you can think differently, the fact that you can, and it's slightly different. Everybody watches US shows and whatever. So that would be another. Tech skills, tech capability, obviously super important at this point in time. I mean, that's a given, I would say. And fourth, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, front end, I would say, I mean, it's something people don't invest in. A lot of people say, I know databases, I know cloud, I know this and that. Once you ask them to actually visualize and present your code, nobody knows how to do that. Nobody knows how to do that. And then you get somebody who's an FED to come in and present the code, and then you struggle. You don't even know basic interactions for a digital app, for example. You don't know how can you use micro interactions. You can't really think through that, and how do you build that? So we've always paid more emphasis on, like we said, we are design-led. We focus on design first, but not just engineering, but how the application looks as well. So I would say anybody with that kind of an experience is somebody who understands user experience, customer journeys. Business requirements are really, really critical. Can you really put yourself in a customer's shoes and think through that problem, the why?
So what I gathered from what you told is that you always have to be at the cutting edge. What was happening in the industry, you had to adapt to it really fast because that's what the market, so your company is driven by the market needs. So what is one thing you would advise students out there that they can do as to always also be also learning the best cutting edge tools, and how can also they put themselves out there and build such things that can help with solving a problem which they want to do.
So I wouldn't say cutting edge. I mean, cutting edge is such a I don't know, industry term. I mean, can you do cutting edge? I mean, whatever. I mean, you try and stay ahead of the curve is what I will say, right? How do you do that is, like I said, Gen AI, right? If I am you, I would say pick a problem, and then how would you solve that with Gen AI and document that journey. That's how I would do it. Simple story. There's pollution everywhere. There's data available. How can you use that data for visualization? How can you use Gen AI, ChatGPT to actually somebody have ask questions to that program and say, which city today is likely to have the most pollution? Why? How many fires in that area? Based on fire, you can see the AQIs. You have AQI data. Overlay that. How many days more when dengue, for example, is prevalent, and our university is the hotbed. Where are the most cases being reported? Are the most cases near hospitals? Are the most cases in villages? So there's so much that you can do based on open data available using Gen AI, using all those tools that are existing. I would do that, solving real problems. The other thing that exists in the US does not exist here is that if you're part of student clubs, which we have here, how do you take projects from startups, for example? How do you take projects from some enterprises and say, we'll do this for you, we'll charge you X amount an hour, really, really low cost, but we'll build this for you. So really solving problems for a customer, pushing your clubs, pushing the faculty, saying, please get us the projects, we want to do some of those projects. That's how you should do it. And you can put that on your resume, then you clearly know that you've done something. As unfortunately, the big problem that I see is that once you graduate, there aren't enough jobs for graduates anymore. And AI is only going to make it worse. So, so what are the options that when you actually graduate, then you have experience under your belt. You're not a fresher. You're not like us, graduated and saying, okay, get me a job. I'm the best thing that happens since sliced bread, right? I can do anything for you. Nobody's interested. So if you go out there and say 1 year, 2 years, I have experience under my belt because I worked for this company. I did a project for 3 months. I did a project for 6 months. And on an ongoing basis, you're a part of that team that builds those products for startups locally, wherever. Take it. I mean, there are so many different portals where you can actually also get present yourself as a team and get more projects. So I would do that. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, because the world is going to change, so I don't know how else can you prepare for it, unless you can show adaptability, you can show learnability.
So just to relate thoughts, you mentioned that it's very important to go out there in the market and make a mark. Like customers won't come to you, you have to go. Then you mentioned that you can't really vet the talent, right? And then you mentioned that it's very important to document journey and upskill. Now my question is that you might have seen a lot of people get opportunities through networking with the right people. Even some students might have engaged with you in past and they would have asked, or even you would have actually reached out to someone who was the mentor in industry back then when you were starting out. How can students really network with right people, and how to find who's the right person to actually network with?
Yeah. So first on the vetting, I didn't say you can't vet. I said it's hard to vet, but you do the basic vetting. But can you really vet if a person is going to deliver or not? That's not easy. Okay. So you need to do the basic vetting. How do you network with people? You need to, again, get out there. Make yourself more visible. Social media is a good way of doing it. Tagging people. How do companies become more visible? By the way, they go on LinkedIn. They see messages that people are posting, and then you respond to that message saying, "I saw you posted on LLMs. Here's my thought on what you're saying. What do you think?" Right? Who said today? The professor said, "I'll post something, the use case. I'm going to tag you today." Tag people. Get more visibility. Let that person retweet or repost that on your LinkedIn, right? If you say something compelling, somebody will. So that's a good way to get in front of people. Now imagine you have my attention and I'm reposting it, then somebody else within that network has your attention. So it compounds in that sense, right? The important thing is how do you say something compelling? And how do you make it authentic? That's really, really important. Most of the times you're not authentic. You're just regurgitating something. Taking ChatGPT, putting something out there and then just repeating it. That's not important. Your life, for example, in a university. How about talking about that? How about talking about computer science? How about learning computer science? What's that been experience? How's that experience been for you? Were you from a tech background? Did you really like tech? How did that change? It's documenting all of that you make yourself visible. The other thing is, there are clubs out there. There's TIE here. You could become a student member of TIE. There's NASCOM. You could associate yourself. You could reach out to companies and say, well, I'm looking for a mentor. I'm looking for a summer internship. Usually this is very unique to our country, is that, and maybe because we're all privileged, by the way, I'm sorry if I say that to you, we are all privileged, right? We think somebody owes it to us. Somebody's going to do it to us because my dad, my mom is this person, the CX person, or this whatever. The university, we're paying so much money, they'll do it for us. It's all BS. I mean, you need to do it yourself. Okay. No one in the US does it, for example. You have to be mindful about your own expenses, about picking up jobs, doing some coding. That's how you become self-sufficient, right? So reach out to people and say, I'm looking for an internship. Don't pay me anything, or pay me minimum amount of money. I don't care. I want to learn. I don't have anybody reach out to me, ever. I just hope and wish somebody from Plaksha University says, I'm interested, rather than somebody reaching out to me saying, oh, we have students, why don't you pick them? It doesn't show intent. Again, it doesn't show, all it shows is privilege to me, right? That, just because the university is saying I'm a founder, I should pick someone up. It doesn't work like that. The other reason why I want that is not because I want to teach anyone a lesson, but in most organizations, everyone is busy delivering something, right? So you need self-motivated self-runners. If you're not that person, if you're going to ask for directions and say, please tell me what to do next morning, I've done this, now tell me what to do, it doesn't work. How can you embed yourself within an organization, pick your own learning, pick your own work? Because there's no program. I don't have a program which says, I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to teach you this. Might happen in bits and pieces. But at the end of the day, you need to embed yourself within the teams. And most people who succeed are people who can do that. So that intent becomes really important. So I would say do that. And there are lots and lots of opportunities out there. Remember, you are privileged, you are in Plaksha, you're privileged because of your backgrounds. And when I say background, it doesn't mean money, it means money, yeah, sure. But it also means that a family who understands the importance of education, who can pay for your education, at least most of it, or if not some of it. How do you take that privilege ahead? I think that's the million-dollar question, right? A lot of people don't realize the privilege and they don't take it forward. I think that should change.
Sir, you mentioned that a lot of students don't really reach out in the first place, and that's missing, right? I think one of the main issues is that students are not very confident as to what should they really speak, right? For example, you mentioned about conferences. Now, some student who wants to approach you might not know how to really approach a CEO in a conference, where there are already like other 30 years old or 40-year-olds surrounding that particular CEO, and what should they really talk about? Because if they talk about asking for an internship or a job, that just might look a little silly, asking that as a front thing. So if you were a student, let's say age 20, and if you were approaching a CEO out of nowhere in a conference, what would be your first statement? I mean, how would you really approach, and what would you say?
So the thing that is said in the industry is, if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money, right? So ask for advice and say, by the way, I have this startup. I'd love to understand this. I'd love to take 20 minutes for you to tell me how to do this. Just like you said, you're an entrepreneur and you run this startup. And so you say, I need 20 minutes for you to tell me how should I scale up? What did you do differently? And then the person at least knows you. I wouldn't ever go to a conference and say, give me a job, give me an internship. Never, ever do that. I would engage very differently. But the point is, what are the odds that you'll bump into anybody at a conference, remote? When I said become a part of TIE, that just means that become a part of that ecosystem where you network and talk with people. Just that, nothing else. And then something will come up. But stalk people on LinkedIn, see what they're doing, and then say something meaningful. By the way, use ChatGPT to say something meaningful. Cut, paste the last 3 posts and say, what can I say that is really interesting for this person? It'll tell you what to say. And then post it and like it. Remember, all of us love to be flattered. All of us love the attention. We're just so vain, all of us. You know that, right? So imagine now you're liking somebody's comments. consistently. I mean, don't overstock that person. But once, twice, thrice, and then say something meaningful, and then that person notices you. And then you should maybe ask that question, right? Maybe then ask, I think you make a very interesting point, but how do you think can a startup in 2024 differentiate themselves? How do you think I can create the right product market fit? How do you know which is the right tech stack for me at this point in time? Where should I look? How should I learn? Can I get 20 minutes of your time? That's how you network, by the way. So LinkedIn is a better way of doing it. Always ask for advice, never ask for money, never be upfront, never ask for anything. And then with founders, you could be a little more upfront and say, I'm from Plaksha University. I see a lot of students connect with me on Plaksha. Nobody ever asks me anything, ever. Why are you connecting with me? I'm a founder, sure, but then unless there's something I can do for you, why would you want to connect? I'm not. You might want to connect with Hitesh or someone else, sure. The founder of Naukri who's also, I'm Net Solutions, who cares? So you need to say, what is the ask? That becomes really important. Connecting with people, there's no pixie dust on you and say, oh, I connected with this founder, so what? So I might be one level away from the CEO of Microsoft, or I might know some really fancy people on LinkedIn. I don't even know why am I connected with them. How am I connected with them? Also, one of the other things I think you should do, if you're connected to people on LinkedIn, there's a way in which you can take notes and say, how did you actually get connected to that person? Do take notes and so to remind you. Sometimes it's good to refresh your memory and say, when you come back and connect, you know someone. So another way of doing this, by the way, you're looking for a job, how do you get in front of the right people? And my daughter and I, and my son's in second year, and he's looking for co-ops as well. It's like, okay, I'm applying to this company. Do you know anyone at this company? I know someone who knows someone. So then you connect with the founder. You say, can you connect me with this person because they have a position that I'm interested in? So that's how you do it. There has to be a specific ask. If there's no specific ask, it's not worth it. And nobody has time. No founder has time. Big or small, nobody has time. Has to be very, very specific, 1 line, 2 line question to ask.
So coming to your personal life, could you describe some highs and lows that you faced as an entrepreneur with Net Solutions? And sometimes over the course of your duration, you must have come across several crises that you might have faced. So how do you navigate your way when you're faced with such pivotal moments? And how do you feel that has impacted you and molded you into the confident, sturdy entrepreneur that you are today?
So yeah, there are highs and lows for every entrepreneur, big or small. For me, I've been profitable from day one. It's been, but this was my third startup, by the way. So I won't say I was born with a silver spoon. On the contrary, it has been a tough journey from that perspective, but it can be a lot more tougher for people these days, right? Where you have a product, an amazing product, and you still can't sell it because you can't differentiate yourself well enough, right? So it's been that way, I would say, literally blessed and privileged and lucky, because you need tons of luck to navigate some of these things. But I would say just don't let success or failure matter so much to you. One of the things that I feel that I lacked was that drive to be very, very successful. I didn't have the drive. I wanted to do a really, really good job of whatever I was doing. Even if it was Ford Motors, I remember I was fanatically obsessed about the single pixel and how that looked, right? Whether it was the right color, right, the way it was visually, whether it was presented properly from a user experience perspective. So I was fanatical about it, delivering that value. So for me, failure is I don't have projects and I'm paying money out of my pocket or my best resource left. But just like I got the best resources to work for us, the right resources, we'll get more. I've always had better people come in. So failure does not deter me, to be honest. It deters me slightly more now, and it doesn't, I won't say deter me, that's not the word, but it just becomes, it's a little more daunting because it just takes a lot more to kind of, once you start operating at a different level to really solve that problem, it has to be solved differently. The problem has to be solved differently. But why would you join an organization? My question to you is, why would you become a CEO? What do you think is a CEO's job? Let me ask you, since some of you are sleeping, what is a CEO's job, you think? Or a founder's job? What do you think is a founder's job? So what is it that you're actually doing here? You're solving a problem, I think, right? You've been given a problem as a CEO, you solve the problem. So I look at these as solving a problem. I mean, so shit happened, now go solve it, because that's why you get paid. Why else would you get paid? Why else would you be successful? In fact, solving problems is the fun bit. I have seen people who become lazy because they're so successful, and I was lazy for a long time. I think solving problems is what keeps you going, what keeps you learning, pushing yourself, and I think those are the times when you're actually living, when you're actually thinking, oh wow, how do I solve this for the organization, etc. Sometimes you'll be able to solve it, other times you won't be able to solve it. I know that. For that, I will say this, and one of the things that I feel I should have done more of, especially because I was in a city like Chandigarh, is speak to more people, get different viewpoints, meet more people, benchmark yourself and your skills, know where you're lacking, spending more time, money, energy doing that, continually investing in yourself, reading more. I wasted a lot of time first few years out of college, whatever. Just like in college, I don't know, we never studied, right? Which is there's work-life balance, and I'm not saying you should always only study, but really value your time more, learn more, network more, do all of that, and those are things that you do when you're in trouble. Then you can reach out to people. Then you know where you're lacking, what you're missing out on. So be prepared for that rainy day. Sometimes if you're in your own echo chamber, alone, don't know who to talk with, you never network because, hey, you're too shy. I have a book called The Introverted Entrepreneur in my office. Trust me, I'm such a freaking introvert, I can't tell you. So much of an introvert, I can't tell you. I would not like to talk with people. I was a confident person, by the way. I'm not saying I wasn't a confident person, but I was very introverted. I just didn't know what to say to people. I don't know what to ask people. I've learned that over the years, and I think it's important. And I think what I will say is that even if you're introverted, even if you don't have enough questions to ask somebody, there's always some angle to something where you can truthfully be interested in somebody's life. If you're truthfully interested in somebody's life, then you can make that connections happen. Remember, networking is not saying hello, it's not getting connected on LinkedIn. It's listening, it's asking questions, it's learning. You do more of that, you have more of these resources to fall back upon. So I would say those are things that I would do more of. Read more books. There's no difference between somebody who has a book, does not read, and somebody who doesn't buy a book. What's the difference? You're the same, right? Invest more in books, even if you're reading 2-3 pages, building the right products, building the products that people love, 0 to 1, some of those books.
Any recommendations, specific recommendations for us?
Lots, depending, it depends on where you are in your journey. Is it a product book that you're doing? Is it, how do you scale your enterprise? How do you really build an enterprise? How do you solve the right problems? So there are tons and tons of
Could you tell
books.
us about some of the most interesting books you've come across? Your top 3 hot picks.
Yeah, so the ones that, one thing that has really, really helped me was this book from a guy called Marshall Goldsmith. What got you here won't take you there. There are pivots in your life. You reach 100 people, 150 people, 200 people. You don't know how to get to 400. You don't know how to get to 1,000. You don't know how to get to 2,000. So remember, what got you here won't take you there. So what got you to 100 people won't take you to 200 people. That's a really, really good book. I also liked a book called The E-Myth Academy by a guy called Michael Gerber. Again, different journey in my life. It was about how do you work on the business, not in your business. And there are lots of books. So there are books on design. There are books on, depending on what problems like I said, you're trying to solve here. If you're acquiring companies, there's a book called Buy Before You Build. There's tons and tons of books.
So you mentioned that you were an introvert. Meeting new people is important. You're also one of those few entrepreneurs who did not really shift countries. your HQ is still in India, it's in Chandigarh, but your company is still global. You have offices in Toronto, New York, London, Los Angeles. So while being staying in Chandigarh, how did you really meet people in those countries, and how did you network, and how did you really scale globally? And what were some challenges?
So, sitting in Chandigarh, I think, like I said, people always ask me this. So, where did you find? I think you asked me that question. Where did you find your customer? Right? I didn't find them. They found me. What is my advice to you? Let them find you. So, did I do anything spectacular? No. They found me because they asked me if I could solve a problem. I said I could, at a low cost with the right quality. Right? So, and it didn't matter where my HQ was. It could be Bangalore, it could be Mumbai, and it never bothered me where I am. We actually incorporated in the UK, in London and Toronto as well, not in the US. The US was just a really fun setting up a virtual office, to be honest. Wasn't really, setting up those offices. But I travel a lot. I meet customers. A good way to grow is to get references. So when you meet people, when you build partnerships, when you really network, like I said, build relationships. There's nothing called networking. You build relationships. You actually get friendly with people. You help them first before they can help you. How can you help them? So rather than saying, can you offer me a job? How about saying, I know 3 amazing people on campus who would be interested to work on a project for you. Imagine that. I mean, so now you're giving value to that person rather than that person giving value to you. That's how you build those connects, isn't it? So that's what I would do. So challenges, I don't know. Challenges is money. Growing in those geographies, it always is super, super expensive. But you need to, I would do it sooner than I did at this point in time. We've always done business in the West, but never really set up offices, never really had local offices. We now have them at this point in time, but should have done that before when the competition was less. So 2 reasons. One is visas. It's hard to find visas. If you don't find visas, then you will work here. You have no choice. Unless you really that exceptional talent, O1 quality talent, where you can find a visa quickly, which you can. There's no reason why you can't. It really depends on what the objective is. Sometimes people don't like the quality of lifestyle here, right? Don't like how, the environment, polluted, everything is a struggle. So a lot of people want to do that. So they'll still continue going. Canada is out, as you know. Australia is out. I mean, they're all out. Europe is way too slow in a lot of ways. India is the hotbed of innovation at this point in time. And you get paid a lot of money. If you can stay in India and earn a lot of money and then travel wherever you like, you'll be surprised how few Americans and how few foreigners can afford a holiday outside India. Indians who earn in India spend next to nothing on living costs, can actually afford that here, right? So the community is here. A lot of people value this more. There's a lot more racism, I would say, of some sort that happens. Some people can embrace it. Other people don't embrace it, right? Depends on how thick-skinned you are. Some people don't care. It's pros and cons. What really matters to you, I would say. So, and remember, also the other difference was there wasn't enough innovation happening at that time in India. Now there's make for India, in India, sell in India. Who cares about the West? I mean, India is one of the countries where the growth is really based on India itself as a market rather than export related. So innovation really happens here. There's bottom of the pyramid kind of riches available if you solve the right problems, and there are enough problems to solve. So I would say that as long as you don't want that lifestyle or yearn for that lifestyle, you could do this here. So there are obviously 2 aspects to it: marketing and sales. Marketing people tend to call it brand building awareness. There's also something called inbound. Do you know about inbound marketing at all?
Clients coming in from seeing your brand.
So earlier when I launched the business, there were clients coming in and saying, I want this. Now, there are very few people who will fill a form and say, can you do this? Unless people know you as a thought leader in your space. So you need to create that thought leadership on your website. and through events, through webinars, create awareness about your brand. There's the outbound strategy, which is calling people. You have SDRs who call people and say, I'll solve this problem for you. But no one's picking up the phone, no one's checking messages. Everybody hates LinkedIn because everyone's selling, right? So how do you really get to those people? It's about being available to a person at the moment when that person is looking to buy something. The touch points that a person has across your brand tend to be more than 100. I think somebody said the 107 or some odd number somebody gave, touch points with your brand, where somebody sees your brand, sees it again, engages with you on a webinar, meets you at an event, you send him some Christmas gift, whatever. It's becoming really, really expensive. So the way you do it is, first and foremost, the number one thing everybody needs to do is, who is your ideal customer that you solve a problem for? The most critical thing. I can't be a services company and say, I'm the best thing. Forrester rated us as one of the top 57 digital experience providers in the world. We were rated alongside Deloitte, Accenture, Infosys. And we told people and said, you know what? We are one of the 57 in the world digital experience providers. And all we got was blank looks. They're like, I mean, what does that even mean and who cares? What can you do for us, right? So it doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you say, what is digital experience? How can you solve the digital experience? And here are 3 ways in which you can solve the digital experience. We spoke to 500 digital experience managers, and these are unique insights that we got. We invited 20 digital experience managers or CD or chief digital officers in mid-sized companies, in healthcare companies, in product companies, to ask them about the problems they're facing in customer experience. That would be something. And say, by the way, we are rated by Forrester as this. That makes sense. So for us, it's actually creating that entire omni-channel journey for our ICPs. How do we get in front of them? How do we niche down enough? So your total addressable market, actually there's a different term now. I think it's called TRM, total reachable market. Well, so total addressable market is like, who needs a software product built, you think? I mean, how many companies would need? Probably millions, even today. How many people can you reach to?
Sam.
Some?
No, I'm saying Sam. Your service available market.
Service as a?
Service available market, and then SOM.
Serviceable market, correct. So, okay, I didn't know that term. Okay. So we call it total reachable or relatable market, whatever that's called, TRM, I think it's called. But that market could be, who can I get in front of and say, by the way, I solved this problem for a company like yours. And then that reachable market, who can I reach to who would be really interesting to them, would be maybe 500 such companies or 200 such companies. Then how do I double down on them? So niching down becomes really important. You can't be everything to everybody. Nobody's interested. I mean, we are all inundated with messages. Even you are inundated with messages today, right? You will have your own networks, right? Who has time? Nobody has time. So unless you know and create FOMO in people. So they say people buy only if you help them save money, or have them earn money, or help them become compliant, which is a little iffy because everybody is compliant these days. So I would say that save them money, earn them money, and create some bit of FOMO in there, and say, I did this for your somebody in your industry. So I think the universities have been very lucky in that there was a huge demand for talent, at least in this country. And I think that is likely to change. That means they'll need to reinvent themselves. While the universities might take longer to reinvent, and I'm talking about even the best universities in the US, by the way, I don't think they're ahead of that curve in that sense. It's the students, if they can be given more choices in the syllabus that they're offered, more courses, more practical experiences, you give more focus on getting practical experience. My kids study in Northeastern University, where there's mandatory 6 months co-op that is needed. and that really gets them ahead in some way, that they have the experience under their belts when they graduate. And also finding that co-op, by the way, nobody helps you. Finding a place to live, finding cooking, washing, all of that, not staying on campus. I think those real life lessons that you need to learn as a student, I would say, are important. As a university, I think there is no real connection with the industry still. There is no concept of entrepreneurs in residence, for example. Imagine getting an entrepreneur and say, stay here on campus for a week, talk to students, meet them, teach them, whatever, right? Help them position themselves better, tell them what is it that is working in their industry, what are the skills they're looking for. Getting industry folks to coming and talking. By the way, something, again, it's privilege. I do not think a lot of students are interested in colleges also. I don't know. I mean, at least I'm not talking about Plaksha at all. I'm talking about a lot of colleges. People show up. I remember actually being in a round table where this was some MBA students there, and we got some amazing speaker from the US to speak at that event. And this speaker asked those students and said, why do you want to do an MBA? They couldn't answer that question, right? So can I blame the school who teaches them, or can I blame them, or what is it that, so I don't know what the answer is, to be honest, but I know this for a fact that somebody who studied in my university, in my college, and I graduated from NIT Kurukshetra, is the second guy at NetApp, for example. I mean, we have some folks who've done extremely well, but they did extremely well in the same university where a lot of students flunked, and the college was, in a lot of ways, shambles, right? I mean, you can't even begin to imagine the education then and education now. I personally think it's about students picking up that, asking what they need, creating a bit of a flexibility in the curriculum. I think colleges should do, and then also really pushing hard on telling the colleges to engage with the industry more and more. You should not spend a week without getting somebody here from the university, from the industry speaking with you, and then going and then implementing. Obviously, once you have the answer, then do not attend those sessions anymore. Engage yourself. But again, I like to believe I am the person who can solve problems. I don't think anyone can. The only thing that IITs and some of these really fancy places solve for you is that it gets you in a very different alum network. It tells people that these guys are smart. Other colleges need to prove they're smart. Just that. It doesn't mean they can't prove it. It just gets more difficult. But would the college education would have taught me anything? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's my answer. Again, I don't know if that answers or not, but more practical is what you're looking for, and more engagement with, there are professors I'm seeing walking up and down, and just get hold of themselves and say, you know what, tell me something practical. Teach me how to do that. Tell me how to do this. Just one last example. One of my friends who graduated from NIT and went to do his master's in the US, the first day, and we graduated in electronics and communication, the first day he was given a computer and said, dismantle it and reassemble it. He said, I don't know how to do that. He said, are you crazy? I mean, you want to do something in computer science, don't know how to do that? He says, burn anything you like, any motherboard, anything, but you need to learn to do this before you do anything. That's practical. Whereas what we do is just sit behind computers and kind of say, oh, this is a motherboard, this is this is that, and then how many people know how to assemble a computer? How many people really know what takes a computer? There you go. One person knows, two people know, a little bit, no? So that's my point, but that is my exact point. I mean, how do you really spend your time? It's going to get more competitive, guys, is all I can say. It's not, I worry for my kids, and I worry for you and my kids as well. I mean, Plaksha kids, right? I mean, you should be worried, because you need to differentiate yourself and really, really be up ahead with it. It's not a good place to be, a good time to be graduating, because the opportunities are a lot, but the expectations are high. The expectations are not what the university taught you. It's not that. I guarantee you that. Basic CGPA is what will be needed to qualify you. That's it. You do your masters, that will be needed for that. That's it. But these days, if you apply to Salesforce, if you apply to Google, you need to make sure you solve a problem. Can you do that? If you can't do that, then it doesn't matter if you got 4 or if your professor taught you anything. Does not matter at all. All the people who were toppers in my college are mostly teachers. Because it's more theoretical. Go teach. There's no practical experience.
Thank you so much, sir, for today's insightful session. I think it was lovely talking to you.